Of politicians. First, though, we're going to look at a story that got a bit lost in the mix yesterday with so much else going on. Bill Shorten yesterday unveiled the final details of the government's plans to overhaul the way superannuation works in this country. It follows the government's announcement that it wants to also increase superannuation contributions from 9% to 12%. Joining me this morning to give us some reaction to those announcements, the Shadow Assistant Treasurer and Shadow Minister for Financial Services and Superannuation, Matthias Cormann. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ashleigh.
Firstly, on that increase to 12%, why isn't the Coalition being more supportive of that? As we live longer, of course, people are going to need more money to help them, pay and live through retirement.
Well, the first point to make here is that this money would actually come out of people's own pockets. So any increase in compulsory super would be funded by a reduction in take-home pay. And Ken Henry, the government's own Treasury Secretary, who looked at this for a lengthy period of time with his committee, he has observed and he has made the point that increasing compulsory super further would hurt low and middle income earners the most. He has made the point that when you've got compulsion, there's got to be a line in the sand, and that line in the sand should be 9%. And the government has been completely unable to explain why Ken Henry was wrong in his observations and why the government is right. They've never properly explained as to why they changed tack from what Henry proposed.
Do you agree, though, that people need to have means to be able to live for longer?
Totally. We've got to have a policy framework which encourages increased retirement savings, for sure. And of course, in Australia, we've got a three-tiered system. We've got the pension system, we've got compulsory superannuation, and we've got voluntary superannuation contributions and voluntary savings. And the Coalition's view is that, yes, we've got 9% compulsory super, which is great. And what we now need to do is we need to target incentives to encourage increased voluntary contributions. Rather than increased compulsion, we stand for increased voluntary contributions.
In the past, Tony Abbott has argued the pension age should be lifted to 70. Is that something the Coalition would look at if you win government?
Well, I mean, these are the sorts of debates that we'll be having, and we'll be having a policy in relation to these matters in the lead up to the next election.
I'm
obviously not going to be.
The pension age should be lifted up to 70.
I mean, this is clearly a debate that Australia has to have. There's some proposals on the table from the government about lifting the pension age. We will be very clear about what our policy is going to be on these and other matters between now and the next election.
Because the government does want to lift the pension age to 67 by 2023. Is that something you support? Because Tony Abbott has said in the past it should be lifted to at least 70.
Well, I mean, as I say, I mean, you will be very clear about what our policy is going to be on this in the next. Well, I mean, obviously we support the concept of lifting the pension age. What the exact age limit is going to be, that's going to be something we will announce in the lead up to the next election.
Yesterday, Bill Shorten also revealed the details to roll out this default super fund that it's setting up called My Super. The reforms also increase powers for regulations of the superannuation sector. Is that something the Coalition is going to support in the Parliament?
Well, I mean, Bill Shorten's announcement yesterday of his My Super proposals was very different of what he was pushing in December last year. And so we welcome the fact that he no longer wants to push for uniform pricing, for example, because uniform pricing enforced through legislation would have left hundreds of thousands of people across Australia worse off. And of course, designing superannuation products and pricing through legislation would have been very inefficient. The best way to maximise value for people in superannuation is to ensure that there are appropriate competitive tensions in the system, in an appropriately transparent system. And of course, in this area, Bill Shorten has again failed to address the absolute national disgrace, which are the default superannuation arrangements under the modern awards.
But you are likely to support these reforms when it comes to the parliamentary vote?
The Coalition will support any changes which improve the efficiency, the transparency and the competitiveness of the superannuation system. Well, I mean, with these sorts of changes, the devil invariably is in the detail. Now that more detail has been released yesterday, we will be consulting with all stakeholders and make sure that there are no unintended consequences with some of the things the government is proposing to do. We're very supportive of the super stream proposals, which increase efficiencies and so on. We are pleased to see that Bill Shorten has backed down from his proposal to fix uniform pricing, which he made in December last year. He clearly has seen the error of his ways, and we argued that this would have been a change which would have left people worse off. So with the rest of it, we're disappointed that he's not doing more to improve corporate governance. We're disappointed that he's not doing anything still to address the closed shop anti-competitive arrangements currently in place.
But in the end, you'll vote to support the changes he wants to put in.
Well, I mean,
very quickly.
While most of the proposed changes are sensible changes, and we've been on the record for some time that we support many many of the changes that are recommended by the Cooper Review.
Okay, I just want to move on to another issue. This week, Tony Abbott promised not to reintroduce individual workplace contracts. Was that a rash and premature thing to do, considering he hadn't discussed it with the party room, and the coalition, of course, is currently reviewing its policy on IR?
Well, our position has been very clear for some time. Work choices is dead.
It's not really clear, though, because you're still coming up with a policy.
Work choices is dead. We will have a strong and effective policy in the lead up to the next election, and it will be a policy which will be focused on solving problems, not on ideology. And I guess, and this is, I mean, all of us in the coalition, we keep making that point. We will have a strong and effective policy.
Individual workplace contracts shouldn't be reintroduced?
Well, we will have a strong and effective policy on workplace relations in the lead up to the next election.
Okay, but you're not agreeing with your leader here.
Well,
I'm asking a pretty direct question. Do you agree with the leaders?
I always agree with my leader. Tony Abbott is doing a great job as our leader. He'll be a fantastic Prime Minister, and we are going through a process at the moment. I mean, even Wayne Swan agrees that there are problems with Labor's workplace relations system. He says that there need to be changes.
Well, the government is reviewing their own system, but back to your policy, I'm just asking a simple question. Do you agree that individual workplace contracts shouldn't be reintroduced?
A very simple answer. Like we all are committed to a strong and effective workplace relations policy. We will be making announcements about what that policy will be in the lead up to the next election, and it will be focused on solving problems, not on ideology. And I always agree with and support my leader.
His comments, though, did anger a lot of your colleagues within the party who believe that reintroducing those individual workplace contracts would help to bring more flexibility into workplaces.
All of my colleagues and all of us in the coalition are totally committed to a strong and effective workplace relations policy in the lead up to the next election.
Yes, but you still haven't said why you don't think individual workplace contracts should be ruled out.
I'm not here to deliver the coalition workplace relations policy here this morning. I just make the very strong point that I am, my coalition colleagues are, committed to a strong and effective workplace relations policy which is focused on solving problems, not on ideology, and that even Wayne Swan has made clear that there are problems with Labor's workplace relations laws. Even Wayne Swan thinks there have got to be changes.
Well, I know your Liberal colleague Jamie Briggs yesterday came out on the record saying he does not agree with that comment by Tony Abbott, but I guess it's going to be further debated in your party room. Just finally, on your future policies, why is the coalition refusing to hand over its election policies to a new parliamentary budget office for independent costing? We're already being told that you're going to use a private accounting firm instead. We have this debate every time there's an election. Surely a parliamentary budget office is the best way to go, the most independent way we can all see both parties' costings.
Well, if it was a robust and credible parliamentary budget office like the budget office in the US Congress, then there wouldn't be any problem. We've put forward some very sensible amendments which would have strengthened the objectivity and the integrity of the parliamentary budget office. Labor has gone with its proposals. Like, we essentially don't have confidence that we would get a fair go under either Treasury costing our policies or the Labor version of the Parliamentary Budget Office.
So both of those bodies are biased, is that what you're saying?
Well, people across Australia will have a very clear understanding of what our policies are going to be, and they will have a very clear understanding of the costings of our policy. So there won't be any problems in the lead up to the next election. Incidentally, I would invite people to look back at what Labor did in the 2007 election, not at what they're saying today.
Yes, it is an argument, as I say, we have regardless of who is in government. Senator Cormann, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Good to be here.
And coming up after the break, we'll chat with Kelly O'Dwyer.